Hi guys, I'm joined with a special guest. Welcome to the show, Tara. Charlie,
Thanks for having me, Abby. It's good to
how are
be
you
here.
today?
Yeah, I'm good. Obviously, I was at the Hibs women game earlier, and it was a good result. So always happy after Hibs win.
Of course. So, just a reintroduction of each ourselves and why we follow Hibs and when we started. So, Charlie, when did you start following and why?
So the first time I watched the Hibs game was 2000, but the first that was when we beat Hearts 6-2, so it was a good game to start watching. My first game was about 2003, and I've been following since, and it was just because who my family supported. So I started going to games with my dad and my grandpa and my uncle, and yeah, I've been hooked ever since.
Amazing. When did you start following the women specifically? Like when it became kind of week in, week out, you watch them on TV, YouTube, kind of thing like that?
So I started watching the women's team probably 2021. My first game, I started watching them. So I watched like a derby. I'd seen like YouTube clips of when they were in the Champions League and stuff, but the first game I remember watching was a derby at the end of the COVID season. I think we won 6-1. I think it was
Yeah.
about that 6 or 7-1. And then my first proper game was the first derby at Easter Road. And I went to a couple of games that season. But properly going week in, week out was last season. So when they moved back to Meadowbank, and I think I've only missed one or two home games since. Been to loads of away games as well. So yeah, it's good. I enjoy it. It's nice to give the girls some support.
Yeah. So I started supporting Hibs. My first game was the Scottish Cup final. Kind of
It's
a
a
weird
good
one to
game.
say, but I remember my mum just entered in evening news, like mascot package thing, and we won. Still didn't want to be there. I was more interested in drinking my Capri Sun that I got in a goodie bag, and then didn't understand it, kind of that. And then it wasn't until about COVID, I would say, then I started watching highlights, kind of getting into it a bit more, watching more games. Like my mum and sister are absolutely hooked to watching the games and going to the ones they can go to and stuff like that. So properly started following the men's last season, I would say. Like that was the first season ticket for first games really, and kind of from then got a season ticket for this season, and then kind of it started off as a sport I hated, and then I love it and can't really stop speaking about it. So kind of a bit weird. But I then say for the women's, it was 2019. When there was the games at Easter Road, it was Slavia Prague. I want to say it was Slavia Prague
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
Hibs, and it was now. Remember going to that game because my sister went to women's games kind of before that, and I kind of wanted to come along one night. Thought Easter Road night. It was a good game, Hibs in the Champions League. Don't get much of that really. Good first game as well for the women's. And then from there I started following them, but then COVID kind of hit, so it was kind of just that. But I would say 2021 or 2020, I kind of went a few games. 2021 was when it kind of got serious, and then got season tickets, and yeah, just love it. I would say the growth as well, seeing the growth. Like
Mm.
I watched them Ainsley Park, um, Pennycook, seeing them there, then going to Tony Macaroni Stadium, and then now at Middlebank. I would definitely say being back in Edinburgh has brought much more attention to the game and much
Yeah,
more
of
fans
course.
along
Hmm.
around the corner of Easter Road. But we'll talk about the growth in women's football later on. So the first kind of subject I've got was last season, and maybe how well did you think we done and what we could maybe improve on. We went into one final and then didn't go far in the next again cup.
Yeah, I thought last season was probably disappointing. I obviously my first season really properly following. I had no real expectations other than I knew we were like the probably the fourth biggest team in the country. Now, we used to be the second, but yeah, I think last season was disappointing for a number of reasons. Obviously, the injuries didn't help. I think losing some key players the season before, like Amy Gallagher and Colette Kavanagh, and players that were probably our better players, didn't really help. And then obviously the poor run of form that injuries sort of played a big part in. Finishing fifth and finishing. I don't know how many points we finished behind Hearts, but obviously it wasn't a great season, but like you say, we got to a cup final, which was good. And yeah, I think on the whole, the season was disappointing, and it was a real shame that it ended with the manager leaving. But I think it was probably the best move for Dean and for the club. But yeah, obviously you don't like to see anyone lose their job. But yeah, I think last season was disappointing, other than probably the cup final and winning the first Capital Cup at Easter Road.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it was like literally a roller coaster. We kind of started off the season quite well, kind of didn't really lose to a big team as much,
Yeah,
and then went to the quarter final of the Next Again Cup, got beat by Rangers 6-0 after only losing to them 2-0 one
yeah,
time, and then was kind of that, I would say, was the pinnacle of like, okay, we're kind of needing to come back into real form. But
yeah,
I would definitely say it was a really roller coaster. The final was good. I would say, like, even though we lost, there was a good atmosphere being also at Tynecastle Park. Not that we would choose to be there, but you can't help it. But yeah, I would say it was a great atmosphere as well. But I would definitely say, kind of at the end, injuries. We had about a bench of about three at the end the last game of the season,
yeah,
one being a goalkeeper as well. So I do think injuries did play a lot. We also had another key player out with pregnancy, which was obviously Rachel Boyle. So I definitely say it's a roller coaster of a season, and I was kind of, sounds bad to say, but glad to see the end of that season, kind of moving on
yeah,
to a fresh start, getting the key players back and getting new signings in and a new manager was kind of an exciting time. So moving on to that, we can go on to the summer signings and obviously the new manager. So start off with the new manager. Grant Scott's obviously come back. He was a manager at least, I can't remember if it was 2018, 19 or if it's longer than that. He was the manager for quite a bit and obviously managed us during the Champions League and kind of quite a good season, I would say. We were at a final that season, but I would say that was when Hibs were like the number two team. It's got a race between Glasgow City and Hibs, but obviously due to the money, Rangers, Celtic, and they're coming through. But I
yeah.
would definitely say him coming back, I thought was a really good idea. But at the same time, there's a lot that's changed between players and money and the run of form. So I definitely say him coming in was a good idea, but I don't. I mean, I still don't know. We've had a lack of consistency with the scores and the games and stuff like that. But what would you say about his arrival to the club?
Yeah, I think um, it wasn't a surprise that he came back. I think he was probably in the list of like three managers I wanted, so I was happy to see him come in. And I think it's good that he already knows the club. I think it's changed a lot. As you mentioned, like the money has changed a lot. There's more teams professional now. And I think last time when Grant was here, you really just had to beat Glasgow City and you had a good chance of winning the league. Whereas now you've got to beat Rangers, you've got to beat Celtic, you've got to beat Hearts, you've got to beat Partick Thistle, you've got to beat pretty much everyone in that league to have a good chance of winning the league. So I think Grant obviously comes in with a lot of experience. He's managed down south and he was the last Hibs manager to win a cup. So I think, yeah, I think at the start I was really happy with him coming in. And I think a 2 year deal was a good deal for him. I think it gives him time that after the 2 years, if he's got us to a good place, he can probably move on or sign a new deal. But yeah, I think it was probably the best shot that we had of getting an experienced manager in.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely would say he brought in some good signings since LC was appointed. So he brought in three youngsters, I would say, three youngsters, and you've got the likes of Dorian Bochum, who you've not probably, I certainly didn't heard of her before. Before she had, you don't really hear about people outside the SWPL coming to a club. So obviously, I've seen the likes of her, Katie Frey, Nina Wilson, I've heard of, but I've never really seen her before. Bringing in these signings, Tegan Byway from Celtic, we've had Abby Ferguson, who's with Celtic, went on loan to Partick, and then came to Hibs. Maya Christie from Aberdeen, experienced players, I would say, even though they're still quite young, they've had
Mm-hmm.
a few years now. I think Tegan was there, made her debut maybe when she was 16 or something. Obviously 18, I think now. So, they've both, even though they're so young, they've had experience. Even though maybe the Aberdeen one, they weren't that well the last couple of seasons, but I definitely say the signings he's brought in, stats can show as well, especially today's game where you've got Jordan scored two, you've got the impact Abby Ferguson had when she came on and when Keegan was on. What would you say about the signings and who would be your standout signing of the season?
Yeah, I think the signings have all been great. I think it's probably positions we needed to strengthen anyway. I think we definitely needed a new left back with Lucy Parry going back to Liverpool, and I think Maya's filled that positional gap really well. I think we needed a new striker to just give competition for places, and Balcom's came in and has really lit the team on fire. I think she's scored. It wouldn't surprise me if she scored 10 goals. I think she's close to it if she's not hit it yet. And I think all the signings have been really good. It's hard to pick a standout one because I think they've all been great, but purely just for the goals, I would say Balcom's been the signing of the summer for Hibs because if we didn't have her, then the goals would be hard to come by. But obviously, you've seen that in today's game, which we'll talk about later. That we scored a couple before she came on. So yeah, it's good. I think the signings we made were good, and hopefully we can bring a few more in January to strengthen the team if we need to.
Yeah, certainly. So I'll move on to some of the games that I would say have been quite impactful for this season. So first of all, we had the Dundee United draw, and this was I think this was a night fixture during the week. So obviously we drew against Dundee United, and I'm not saying that they're a bad team or something like that, but when you look at the results they had before that, getting beat quite a lot by other top teams, I would say that was quite a disappointing, especially now looking at the table where it could put us, before Hearts. It can make the gap bigger, thinking about these games. But then we won the derby, which was obviously 1-0 at Tynecastle away. It's always a great time to win away, especially at Tynecastle. But then we moved on to last week's game, which was obviously losing to Rangers. What would you say? Would you say there's the lack of inconsistency, or would you just say it's the lack of keeping the same squad kind of similar and having impact?
I think it's both. I think we haven't really seen a consistent starting 11. The Dundee United one, I think we'd made a few changes, and obviously I think we'd done everything that night except score. I think looking at the stats, obviously being a midweek game, I wasn't able to go to Dundee, but I think looking at the stats and speaking to a few people about the game, I think the only thing we didn't do that night was score. And then I think the early season alarm bells are ringing a little bit there. When you're drawn to Dundee United, and then even the Spartans game, a couple of games after that being 2-0 down, and then obviously we get the draw, but that's two draws you really can't afford at the early start of the season. But like you say, we went to Tynecastle and we won. It was a great performance from the team. I think it was nice to have a full bench that day instead of what we had last season at Tynecastle, where there was one fit player on the bench. But yeah, like you said, it was a great feeling to go there and win, especially when for a couple of years before that Hearts hadn't beat us. So it was nice to go there and win. And then I think up until the Partick game, we were starting to be a wee bit more consistent. We were winning, beat Aberdeen 5-0, beat them 6-2 in the cup. We were getting to just see the consistency, and I think that was probably because the team was a bit consistent. And then obviously you go to Ibrox and you get beat 7-0, which is not ideal for anyone really. It's not what you expect from a Hibs team, men or women, to go to Ibrox and get beat 7-0. And I think that probably played a lot into the team and the result we've seen today. I think Grant had to make a few changes after the back of that. But yeah, like you said, it's not a great result. And it's probably one towards the end of the season that we'll probably need to build the goal difference back up. But obviously, we've scored 8 goals today, so I think that'll help a little bit. But I think, we can't afford many more results like that this season, especially when we're playing Celtic away, Glasgow City away, which we already have, thankfully. But I think, yeah, we can't afford many more results like that.
Yeah. So as I said before, we brought in so many young players. It's good to see kind of the young players making impacts, making the starting 11, but also seeing the academy players. This was something Grant had been keen on when he was at the club at the first time, and obviously he's brought in Rowena and Nevin, he's brought in the academy players, and I would say that's a really good thing. And I don't understand why there's such a big difference between the first team, like why we don't have a division squad, for example, because
Mhm.
obviously that was a thing kind of a couple of years back, and it had the likes of Kirsty Morrison and people like Kirsty Morrison, Rhea McCaffrey, and obviously people like that. So would you say that's a good thing? And what would you maybe say? Would you agree with bringing in maybe a division squad for the women's?
I think you definitely need. Um, I think you definitely need to bring the younger players in. I think especially in the pre-season games, we've seen a couple of them come on and they look good. And in the cup game the other week, Rowena got maybe 10, 15 minutes when we were already 6-2 up. So, it was good to see that. Obviously, I don't think you can play them in league games because they're so tight. But I think, if we get a favourable draw in the Scottish Cup, for example, against maybe a team 2 divisions below us, then of course you can play them then. And yeah, I think having a divisional squad would be good because it's good having these academy players, but if there's no bridge from playing girls football to the first team, then that could come as a big shock. Obviously we've seen Ailey Adams and Rosie Livingston are probably two of, in recent memory, the best players to come out of the academy, and they seem to have slotted in nicely to the first team. But I think for the girls coming through now, I think it would be good for them to have something to work towards. So you go into the divisional squad, then you go up. So yeah, I think that there should definitely be someone the club are looking at bringing in. I think to give the girls more experience, even girls in the first team that are maybe coming back from an injury that could play one of those games to get some minutes in the legs, because it's hard to come straight back into the first team after being out for a year. What happened with Rachel Boyle last year was on the pitch 6 minutes in our first start and was back out for another year. So yeah, I think it would be great to have someone like that.
Yeah, definitely. And it would also, with international breaks, even the ones that haven't been called up internationally, maybe do a friendly between even like
Yeah,
Burnley or Thistle. I would just that to get the academy players, for example, in the squad, and as you said, the injured ones like Kristen Morrison, who obviously came on today but didn't play as much as a
yeah,
game, just prevent any further injury or another injury. But moving on to that, obviously the next one was injuries. So obviously you've had Shiv out injured, who's then come back and then made the starting 11 a couple of weeks. You've got Joelle Murray and Rachel Boyle kind of out. Do you think, with that senior players out, I wouldn't have, if you said that last season, like them out, you'd have thought, oh, kind of like with the
yeah,
experience that they've kind of bring and stuff, Joelle Murray's gone on to, and Rachel have both done international duty, they're quite mature players. I would say they're quite direct. I would have said, are you, what, what is Stephen going to bring? But now I would definitely say the youngsters have kind of filled in that gap, I would say. And obviously, it's never good to see a player out for so long, especially Rachel after being out for a while, obviously, maternity, and then back, and especially an ACL injury, they're quite
yeah,
high in women's sports. And I hope that does kind of change, because now in each week I feel like another two or three are coming out, and it's obviously high. Like, you've just seen Neymar done his now,
yeah.
and it's like as soon as a player's done his like research, and everyone's looking at what's an ACL. Whereas if you ask most women's football fans, they'll be like, I know what that is and stuff like that. So we definitely say kind of that, but hopefully Joelle and Rachel, when they come back and stuff, they can make the impacts. Obviously Joelle's kind of gone into a split role with coaching and playing, which I would definitely say has worked so far. Like
Hmm.
Joelle female on the sideline coaching. One day could she be a manager of a team? I would say I could definitely see her. She's doing her coaching badges, so definitely say. But we've also got Ryan Katie Frayne out at the moment, but hopefully I've spoken to her today and she said it shouldn't be too long, but they've still not got a timeline, but obviously that will get discussed.
Yeah.
So at the moment I would say it's just consistency in the squads, getting that starting 11, and even if it's one of the easy games, still putting a strong squad on to the start and then kind of, put on that. But we'll move on to today's game. So obviously we had Hamilton at home at Meadowbank, which was at 1 o'clock. We won that 8-1. What would you really say about this game? Like, what was your views about it?
I thought going into it, when I seen the team, I was a bit confused why he'd made so many changes, especially dropping I think, well, Jorian was on the bench. Maya was on the bench. And players like Abby Ferguson, I think we have started on the bench that usually plays. Players, like the Brooke, like the key players were on the bench, which obviously when you're playing the team bottom of the league, I think you can do that. That you can mix it up and give players a wee bit extra minutes if you need them. And obviously it's great to see Kirsty back on the bench. And I think first half, I think we started well. We got the goals at the right time. And going in 2-0 at half time, I don't think anyone could really complain from a Hamilton side. I think they didn't really offer much, to be honest, in the first half, and then got their goal early second half. And I thought when they went 2-1, I thought maybe it would have been maybe 3-1 Hibs as the full time result, but we just kept applying pressure, and we got another 6 goals. So yeah, I was delighted to see Ailey get a hat trick. She's not really scored many this season, so that'll do her the world of good to get a few goals. Obviously, Leah Tweedy got a goal off the bench. Jorian got 2. Cannon got 1. I can't remember if I'm missing. Rosie scored as well. So it was nice to see that. And obviously, Kirsty coming on got maybe 1 or 2 assists, I think. So, I thought it was a great performance. It's probably what we should be doing to teams down the bottom of the league. Looking at like teams like Hamilton and Montrose, teams like that, we should really be beating them comfortably. I think obviously we beat Montrose 3-0 earlier in the season, 3-1. Can't remember if they scored or not, but I think that's probably what I expect against teams like that, and especially in the cup, or the league. We should be winning these games comfortably. So yeah, I was happy. That was a great performance and a lot to build on as well, especially having Montrose next. That's a good opportunity in 2 weeks to go and hopefully do the same again.
Yeah, definitely see the same. Like I said, seeing different scoring goals as well and getting that. I would say it took about, I don't know, maybe a 60th minute for everything to finally click, and that's when the goals kept coming. Like I
Yeah,
was writing a match report and it was like goal, and then it was another goal, and I was like, wait, what? Kind of like head down and you've missed a goal. But I definitely say something clicked in that second half, especially. But for them to get the goal back, I was thinking, could they kind of change it? Because you're never safe when you're winning.
no,
Was it 3-0 at halftime, 2-1? Don't know. Anyway, when you're winning, you can never be safe at all. But I would definitely say the different players kind of come on. But I was the same. I was saying Brooke on the bench. Kind of that's one player I thought we'd start just with being a starter, then being the bench, then kind of that sort of stuff, and how that impacts a player's confidence. We've seen probably after the Rangers loss, their confidence has probably dropped. But
yeah,
it was good to see Alias be back with a smile on her face as soon as that full time whistle when it was something that made you smile as well, and like made you like feel happy, especially seeing a smile back on her face and kind of like that. But as I said, moving on to Montrose after the international break, which will be a good to see if they'll keep the consistent 11 starting 11 or if they'll change it. I don't know. Katie Frayne might be back then, or it might be too soon. But yeah, it was a good performance, I'd say, from everyone. It wasn't just like one player put all effort in, and you had Tegan on the wing, Shannon on the wing, you had kind of everyone. But I would definitely say annoying thing is that Hamilton are. It's never good to see a team lose week in, week out to any team. Like a part of me really did feel bad kind of beating them 8-1. I know it sounds silly, but it's not really. We've seen this happen with Glasgow in the last season, not winning a game. But they kind of went into it with being not only women's and girls teams, so they kind of
yeah,
knew what they were kind of getting to. Whereas Hamilton obviously got a men's side. But I would definitely say you kind of wonder what's going on there, if it is the money or if it's they've got quite a youthful side. I would definitely say there's a lot from on loan from the young groups at Rangers, Celtic, and kind of teams like that. So I definitely say I'm really hoping they get at least a win.
yeah.
They were fighting me like last season. I would hope they can get a win. At least that'll boost momentum. But I would definitely say, will the manager be leaving? Is it the manager? I seen him sitting down after the game, just sitting down in the stands and just looking at thin air. So did he lose his job? Obviously, that's not confirmed or anything. So, but yeah, it's a good result for us. But I do kind of partly feel bad for Hamilton. because it's never nice to see that. We will move on to where that puts us in the table. So that puts Hibs 5th on 17 points, right behind Hearts, who are on 4th at 19 points. So still, anything can happen. Still quite tight. So we have won 5 games, drawn 2, and lost 4. So looking at that, we've won 5, but I would say 2 of the ones we've lost, we should have won or drawn, I would say. Definitely Dundee United, seeing the highlights, where keep going. So it's disappointing when you look at that that could affect the table, like that could have put us above Hearts, and it could have put us in first at one point, looking at the table. And then in 6th, we have Partick on 15, but they do have a game in hand due to all the games postponed. So looking at that, the table's still quite close. I would say it's anyone's season, especially looking at the top as well. Rangers, Celtic, Glasgow City, and then I'd say it's close. There's like 3 main bets, and it would be top 3, then 4, 5, 6, 7 even, and then 8 till. But definitely say that kind of looks well going on to the international break with Montrose, and then we've got Dundee United in the cup on the 10th. So we'll go on to that. So this is the Sky Sports Cup, which we were in the final of last season. We obviously beat Aberdeen 6-2 in the game at Meadowbank. I unfortunately couldn't be there, but from what I've heard, it was until we got the 3rd and 4th goal, I would say people were saying it was quite tense, when they got that goal back, second one back. Were you at that game?
Yes, I was there. Yeah.
So what would you say from that happened? Would you say it was a tense game? We played Aberdeen now twice, I think it is, and they've both been quite tense games, I would say.
Yeah, I think the cup game was it was a tough game. I don't know. I think the scoreline doesn't reflect the game because I think Aberdeen played a lot better in that one than they did in the 5-0 game. And it was a tense game when they went 2-1 up going into half time. I thought this could be it. We could be going out here, but yeah, we done well to get the 5 goals in the second half to get through. So yeah, it was a nervy game of 2 halves for sure.
Yeah, and then we've got, as I said, Dundee United on the 10th. What would you expect from this, and do you have any predictions yet?
I think we'll win. I think we'll learn. Hopefully, I've learned from what we didn't do as well in the first game against them in the 0-0 draw, and I think we'll get through, and I think I think the semi-final is going to be hard, whoever we get, because there's still some hard teams still in the cup. So I think we'll see how it goes, but I think we'll get to the semi.
Yeah, I definitely say we get to semi, and I don't know if semis are yet going to be at a big stadium for this cup, because obviously for the Scottish Cup it was obviously at Hampden for the semis and the final, but I don't know if this will be. But I certainly do think we can get to the semis. If not the final, looking at these results, you kind of think no chance. We just got beat by the likes of Rangers and stuff like that. But I do think obviously some of that, the cup, anyone's there to win. You can't look at the league and be like, let's say a team at the top playing a team at the bottom. You can never say, oh, it's definitely going to be them. They're definitely going to, put loads past them. But I definitely say hopefully we can get to the semi, but I do think it will be a tight one considering we drew against them and the run that they're on. So I do think it'll be like 2-1, maybe 3-1 most. I would definitely say, but we've still got the likes of Partick, Rangers, Celtic, and Glasgow City. Are they still in it?
I think so.
Glasgow. I think it's them 3. So obviously that's really whoever it gets, it's going to be a hard game. But I do believe if they keep their heads up, anything can happen, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. So the last thing I've got is the growth of women's football. So obviously you've been supporting, men's football for a while. You've seen the growth in that as well, and then moving on to women's. You started supporting them when they were still at Tony McAvoy, wasn't it, or was it Middlebank?
Mm-hmm. Tony
McAvoy. Yeah, a few games. The turnout in that, there was barely enough to fit one little bit of the stand. And now they're, I would say, close to selling out Meadowbank a few times. It is a smaller stadium. I would say. I think it's the same size as Ainsley Park. If I'm wrong,
I think so.
wrong.
about that.
I think Spartans then have built more, but it was the size. So obviously that then does impact of seeing how many are actually there, but then obviously moving on to the derby, you saw how many were there and stuff like that. So there's definitely the growth there, and hopefully more and more games will be played at the men's stadiums. I was a bit shocked to see the Celtic Rangers women's game being played at Airdrie instead of Celtic Park when Celtic were away, but I think it's due to them having a Europe game on Wednesday. But it's slightly disappointing because you've got in the WSL, you've got Leicester and Tottenham. The last 2 seasons have done a men's and a women's game same day, so I'm unsure about that. But what would you say about the growth, and what would you say is impacted? I would say the Euros for me. I would say it's impacted a lot. England winning that as much as Scotland weren't in it, and Scotland fans might not like that England won it. I would definitely say it has impacted down south, and then it's kind of come up here. Not yet at the same level, but that's just how big countries are.
Yeah, I think it's grown massively since the Euros. Last year, 100%. I think the World Cup's played a big part in that too. I think it's great to see more fans going each week, and obviously the record crowd being broken 3 times in one season, and our league was great. And obviously you're seeing Women's Cup finals down south being selling out Wembley pretty much. So yeah, I think it's great to see the game growing, and I think it's probably a lot to do with how well it's been marketed as well. I think there's a lot more, especially up here. You look at BBC have got a women's football highlight show each week, and I think that's definitely helping people pique an interest in the game. And I think that's only a good thing. I think it's great to see that, especially Hibs, we're getting more fans through the door every week. And, things like a family fun day today, especially will help. Kids getting in for free if I pay an adult. That's only going to help people maybe go for the first time and see that it's actually quite enjoyable to go to a women's game, and hopefully they come back as a result. So yeah, it's been great to watch. I think I started watching women's football at the right time, because I've seen it grow from, I was at the Partick game at Easter Road when there's about 100 people there to now, there's no way we'd get anywhere near that if we played at Easter Road with a paying audience again. There was something like 1,200 there in April at the Derby. So it's great. I think it's one of those things that it can only get bigger as well. It's not going to go smaller now. It's going to keep growing and keep growing. So hopefully soon we can see Easter Road being sold out, Tynecastle being sold out, Celtic and Celtic Park Ibrox being sold out when teams play there. So yeah, it's a great thing, and it's good to see that people are being interested in it for all the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. I would definitely say to anyone that's been thinking about going to a women's game, just do it, because tickets for one are affordable. You can get an
Yeah,
adult for it. I don't think there's been a ticket more than a tenner for an adult. Um, Season tickets are cheaper than men's. The likes of that. An adult women's season ticket is cheaper than a kid's season ticket for the men. So I definitely say to anyone that's looking to go, just go, and you'll see how fun it is. You'll meet a new family kind of thing. You've seen the fan base grow here. We've met through football and met loads of people through football, and I definitely say it's a great fan base to join.
absolutely.
And I say there's nothing to be embarrassed if you're coming on your own, because everyone is there for the same reason, and it's just to enjoy a game of football. But I definitely say, yeah, it's been a journey. I would say, kind of watching them at Ainsley Park and watching them. Not many people, not many kind of. I remember even just following Hibs women, and they didn't have many followers, and I was like, is this the real account? Thinking, but I did think that. I was like, is this the real account? But it was. But yeah, even just seeing the down south, what's happening there, and selling out. But obviously, I said seeing Easter Road sell out would be a good, like that would be a great atmosphere, even just for. I'd love to see a night like the Derby on the 19th, like night under lights, sold out, the atmosphere, just everything about that. The men's, we see it there. And I would definitely say another thing as well, there's not there as much as there is rivalry between the teams, I wouldn't say I've gone to a stadium and felt like I'm the odd one out, if you get what I mean. Like I wouldn't say I went to Parkhead when they played Hibs And obviously, you're sitting next to Celtic fans. There's no bother. I sat next to Rangers fans, Hearts fans. There isn't that in women's football, which I do think is good. There is rivalry at the same time, but there's nothing. I definitely say if you're scared to go to a men's game and it's because it's too loud, too busy, I definitely say go to women's games because it's, I would say, quieter, better environment. But I definitely say encourage anyone that's coming. But yeah, that's Hibs women's this season so far. It's been great to have you, Charlie. Thank you for joining.
Of
And
course.
we'll join you at the end of the season when we can do a season recap.
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Thank you.